In a world that moves faster than the breath we take, many measure a man's worth by what he owns, who walks beside him, or how much he is desired. But the man who walks alone is not necessarily lonely. He is not weak. In fact, the one who chooses solitude over shallow connection, discipline over distraction, and focus over fleeting pleasure is far more rare than the one constantly seeking validation. True strength is not seen in how many people admire you, but in how still you can remain when no one is watching. Just as a monk retreats into silence to discover the self, a man who walks without a partner but with presence, patience, and purpose is living the life of inner Shaolin. He is sharpening the weapon that is within, his mind, his spirit, his control, and this, in today's world of noise, is real mastery. Solitude is often misunderstood in modern life. Many people see being alone as a flaw, a sign of failure or something to be quickly escaped. But for those who walk the path of mastery, solitude is not a prison, it is a temple, a space where distractions fall away and only truth remains. When a man is not involved in a romantic relationship, he is granted a rare opportunity, an uninterrupted encounter with himself. In this space of quiet, free from emotional entanglements and external expectations, he begins the most sacred form of training, the discipline of the mind. This discipline is not loud. It is not boastful. It is not visible to the world, but it is where strength begins. Every time the mind desires something, attention, validation, intimacy, and the man chooses not to run toward it blindly, a form of self-mastery is built. He is no longer controlled by instinct. He begins to rise above it. This is the essence of Shaolin, not the martial forms, not the symbols, but the ability to gain command over one's inner world. The man who is constantly distracted by relationships, flattery, or emotional highs becomes split within himself. His energy leaks, his purpose is diluted. He responds to life rather than shaping it. But the man who remains in solitude, not out of bitterness, but out of conscious choice, begins to collect himself. Every morning becomes a ceremony. Every breath becomes a meditation. He no longer wakes up wondering how to please others. He wakes up wondering how to sharpen himself. This sharpening happens not in grand gestures, but in small acts of attention, sitting in stillness instead of chasing stimulation, reflecting on his thoughts instead of reacting to them, observing his fears instead of escaping them. All of this is training. In solitude, the mind begins to speak louder. The thoughts that were once buried under noise rise to the surface. And at first, this can feel like discomfort. But discomfort is not the enemy. It is the gate. The man who avoids discomfort will always chase something outside to soothe the agitation within. But the man who stays with himself, even when the silence feels heavy, begins to see clearly. He sees his pattern. He sees his illusions. And slowly he begins to reclaim his attention. Attention is the most valuable resource a human being possesses. Where the attention goes, energy follows. Most people spend their lives giving this attention away, pulled by relationships, social media, obligations, and desires. But the one who is alone, by choice, can direct his attention inward. He can preserve it. He can focus it. And this focused attention becomes power. That power begins to manifest in every area of life. His presence deepens. His words become fewer but more meaningful. He learns to listen more, not just to others but to life itself, the wind, the breath, the rhythm of the body. He notices the patterns of thought. He trains the inner voice not to speak in fear but in clarity. This is the work that most people avoid because it is invisible. It offers no applause. No one cheers when you sit alone and observe your mind, but the transformation that occurs here is greater than any external achievement. Because once a man learns to sit with himself without restlessness, without needing escape, he becomes unshakable. He can walk into any room and not be affected by approval or rejection. He can love without attachment. He can act without expectation, because he no longer moves from emptiness, he moves from fullness. The Shaolin way is not about isolation from the world, but preparation for it. A man who masters his mind in solitude is better prepared for all forms of relationship, all forms of connection. He does not enter relationships from lack, but from choice. He does not need anyone to complete him. He chooses to walk beside those who align with his path. Until then, he walks alone, not in weakness, but in preparation, because he understands that a relationship should never interrupt his path. It should walk with it. And until that alignment is found, his solitude is not something to fix, it is something to respect. Because in that solitude, the mind is being trained, the distractions are being stripped away, and what remains is the pure force of presence. This presence is what shapes a man into a warrior, not one who fights others, but one who conquers the most dangerous battlefield, the space within himself. ChatGPT says, emotional mastery is not the absence of emotion, nor is it suppression. It is the ability to sit with a feeling, understand it, and then choose the right action. Not the most comfortable one, not the most reactive one, but the one that aligns with purpose. A man without a girlfriend, if he walks this path with awareness, does not numb himself from connection. Instead, he builds a sanctuary within that does not depend on emotional affirmation from others. He learns to identify desire when it arises, but he does not allow it to control him. He can observe longing without acting out of it. He can feel loneliness without turning it into desperation. This level of internal discipline is rare, because modern life teaches the opposite. It teaches reaction. It teaches that discomfort must be fixed and that the solution lies in another person. But the man who trains himself to feel completely without clinging grows into someone who is not moved by emotional storms. When emotions no longer dictate man's actions, clarity emerges. He is no longer a slave to his moods. He no longer burns time chasing what soothes him temporarily. He learns that not every feeling deserves a response. He begins to separate what he feels from what is true. This distinction is the essence of wisdom. A man who cannot separate his emotions from his identity will always be trapped in confusion. One moment of sadness will make him question his entire life. One feeling of desire will cause him to compromise his values. But a man who has mastered his emotional world remains steady, even when his inner sea is turbulent. He does not pretend the emotion is not there. He just does not become it. He recognizes that an emotion is like weather. It will pass. It is not permanent. And the moment he understands this, his decisions begin to come from a deeper place, a calmer place, a wiser place. Romantic relationships often test this clarity. When a man enters one without emotional mastery, he projects. He looks for his partner to give him what he has not given himself: validation, comfort, meaning. He becomes reactive. He interprets silence as rejection. He confuses affection with obligation. Every disagreement becomes a personal wound. But when a man has walked through the fire of solitude and emerged with clarity, he brings something different into a relationship. He brings stability. He does not demand constant reassurance. He does not get lost in emotional chaos. He listens without defending. He speaks without blaming. He does not run when things get difficult, nor does he stay when things become harmful. His emotional compass is grounded in self-knowledge, not in fear of loss. Emotional mastery also builds freedom. Most people believe that freedom comes from doing what you feel. But this is only half of the truth. True freedom comes when you can feel fully and still choose your path. When desire rises, you see it, you greet it, but you are not controlled by it. You learn how to sit in discomfort without needing it to end quickly. This is how the inner muscle is built. Each time you sit with frustration, each time you sit with longing and do not collapse into it, you strengthen your emotional core. And just like training the physical body, this work is silent, it is invisible, no one sees it, but its power is reflected in everything you do. You respond with patience where others react with panic. You move with intention where others are moved by impulse. And in this space, your presence becomes commanding, not loud, not aggressive, but undeniably grounded. When a man has emotional mastery, he is no longer addicted to the highs that come from romance. He does not need someone to constantly tell him that he is enough. He knows his value in silence. He knows his direction in stillness. And because he is full within, he is not afraid to be alone. He does not seek connection to escape himself. He seeks it only when it aligns with the clarity he has already found. This transforms his relationships into sacred bonds instead of survival strategies. The love he offers is clean, strong, and undemanding. He is not there to be saved, nor is he there to control. He is there to walk side by side, grounded in his own being, respectful of the other's path. Without emotional mastery, a man's life becomes chaotic, even if it looks impressive on the outside. Without emotional mastery, success feels empty and love becomes a battlefield. But with mastery, everything changes. His mind becomes quiet, his words become precise, his love becomes a choice, not a compulsion. He can sit in silence and feel at peace. He can witness his own pain and still stand tall. He can be rejected and not break. This is the strength that solitude offers, not a cold heart, but a calm one. Not detachment, but depth. It is the strength of a man who knows himself so well that no feeling can make him forget his direction. This is the spirit of a real Shaolin, still strong, disciplined, and unshaken by the noise of fleeting emotion. Desire is one of the most powerful forces in human life. It moves the mind, stirs the body, and pulls attention like a magnet. For many, desire becomes a master. It shapes decisions, clouds clarity, and disturbs peace. But for the man who chooses the path of discipline, desire becomes a teacher. He does not run from it, nor does he blindly serve it. He observes it, he respects it, he learns from it. And in doing so, he begins to separate desire from attachment. This is where true strength is born. Not in denying human longing, but in not being enslaved by it. The man without a girlfriend who walks the inner path of self-awareness feels desire like everyone else. He notices the pull of connection, the warmth of intimacy, the longing for affection. But he does not let these feelings steer his life. He remains grounded, centered, unmoved by temporary waves. He knows that to chase every feeling is to lose the stillness he has built. Desire becomes a test of his inner clarity. It whispers stories of romance, of passion, of completion, but he listens without acting. He watches the mind create fantasy, but he stays in the present. He knows the difference between emotional hunger and soul alignment. And because he knows, he can wait. He can wait without impatience because his life is already full. He does not seek someone to complete him because he is not in. He does not seek a relationship to feel valued because he has already claimed his worth. This freedom is not born from arrogance, but from self-understanding. He has seen the cycles of attachment. He has witnessed how the mind clings to people, to pleasure, to attention, and instead of being pulled by that current, he stands still within it. Not resisting life, but choosing consciously. To desire and not attach is to walk the path of the wise. Most people confuse the two. They feel a pull towards something and believe it must be followed. But following every pull leads to scattered energy, broken focus, and spiritual fatigue. The man on the inner path learns to see through this illusion. He learns that desire will always exist, but he does not have to feed it. Feeding every desire is like trying to quench thirst with seawater. It promises satisfaction, but leaves you more empty. This man learns to quench his thirst from within. He finds joy in solitude. He finds peace in simplicity, and in this way he becomes powerful. Not because he has no desires, but because his desires do not own him. This mastery is not instant. It is forged in silence, in awareness, in patience. Each time he feels the pull toward someone and chooses not to chase, he strengthens his will. Each time he feels the sting of loneliness and sits with it instead of escaping, he becomes more whole. And in that wholeness, he becomes more attractive, not in the physical sense, but in his energy. Others feel his presence. They sense his calm. They are drawn not to what he offers, but to what he holds. Because in a world addicted to attention, the man who does not seek it is rare. His quiet strength becomes louder than any words. His ability to walk alone speaks louder than those who constantly need someone beside them. And this presence is what makes him stand apart. To live without attachment does not mean to reject love. It means to approach love without need. When he finally meets someone, he does not arrive empty. He does not demand that they fill the void within. He meets them whole. He offers without clinging. He connects without losing himself. And this makes the connection sacred. It is not built on fear, on control, or on dependency. It is built on freedom. Because he has trained himself to be free even in the face of longing. He can now love without fear. He can give without the fear of loss. He can walk beside someone without needing to hold tightly. And that is the deepest form of love. Desire, when left unchecked, becomes suffering. But desire, when witnessed without attachment, becomes fuel. The man who trains his mind in solitude uses that fuel wisely. He channels it into growth, into creation, into self-discovery. He learns how to transform longing into purpose, and slowly he becomes untouchable. Not in the sense of being unreachable, but in the sense of being unshaken. No passing emotion, no fleeting desire, no external distraction can take him away from his path. He walks with clarity. He chooses with awareness. And when he does choose love, it is from fullness, not from hunger. This is why the man who can hold desire without being ruled by it is the man who truly knows himself. His strength lies not in denial, but in mastery, not in avoidance, but in alignment. He does not chase, he attracts, not because he wants to, but because who he has become is magnetic to all that is true. Silence is often feared in modern life because it exposes what we try to avoid. It brings forward the thoughts we bury under entertainment, the questions we silence with conversations, and the truths we ignore through constant distraction. But for the man walking the path of inner discipline, silence is not something to run from. It is something to enter fully. A man without a girlfriend who embraces this silence gains access to a realm that most never touch. In this space, he does not need to impress anyone, prove his worth, or explain his choices. He simply listens, not with ears alone, but with his entire being. This type of listening is not for external noise, but for internal clarity. When the outer world quiets, the inner world begins to speak, and in that speaking, vision is born. True purpose does not scream, it whispers, and it can only be heard in silence. Most people's lives are filled with reactions. They respond to what others want, follow what others expect, and chase what others value. In the noise of society, many lose their own voice. They forget what they stand for, what matters to them, what direction they were meant to walk. But the man who chooses solitude instead of seeking romantic attachment creates the space to remember without the emotional noise of another person's expectations or the constant energy exchange of a relationship. His mind becomes still enough to reflect. That reflection brings him face to face with himself, not the self he shows others, but the one behind every mask. In that mirror, he sees his fears, his hopes, his wounds, his dreams, and from that awareness, something sacred arises. A vision that belongs to him alone. This vision is not always grand or loud. Sometimes it is a simple clarity, a quiet understanding of who he is and how he is meant to walk. But that simplicity holds immense power because it is undiluted. It is not borrowed from others or shaped by trends. It is born from silence and carries the weight of truth. Once a man has touched that vision, he begins to move differently. His actions become intentional, his words become fewer but more aligned. He no longer wakes up to chase the world's approval. He wakes up to serve his purpose. And because that purpose was discovered in silence, it cannot be taken by noise. No criticism can shake it, no distraction can confuse it. It was forged in solitude, and therefore it is indestructible. A man who understands the value of silence also understands the danger of filling every moment with stimulation. Every time we turn to a screen, a message, or a voice to avoid stillness, we trade depth for comfort. The man who walks alone by choice has the courage to sit in the discomfort of his own thoughts. He watches them rise and fall like waves without judgment. He allows boredom, sadness, or restlessness to visit, but not to take control. This patience with his own mind is what trains him for real life. Because life will bring storms, it will bring confusion and uncertainty, and only the one who has practiced stillness can remain centered when everything outside begins to shake. Silence also sharpens perception. When a man no longer seeks constant emotional exchange, he begins to notice things others miss. He sees the details in nature. He hears the patterns in conversations. He becomes aware of energy, of tension, of truth behind words. This heightened perception allows him to make wiser choices. He does not rush into situations blindly. He sees people clearly because he has seen himself. And because he is not desperate for connection, he can walk away from anything that does not resonate with his spirit. His standards are not based on fear of loneliness. They are based on alignment. He would rather be alone in peace than accompanied in confusion. And this choice, repeated again and again, becomes a force. It shapes his character, his path, and his destiny. Silence is not empty. It is full of messages, but only a quiet mind can hear them. The man who trains in solitude knows this truth. He does not fear silence because he knows what lives within it. In the quiet, he finds his strength. In the stillness, he finds his direction. And once that direction is found, he protects it. He does not let relationships, opinions, or emotions steer him away from it. He becomes loyal not to comfort but to clarity. And that loyalty becomes the foundation of his life. The strength to listen when others talk, the strength to pause when others react, the strength to observe when others judge, all of it comes from the practice of silence. This is why the man who spends time alone is not wasting time. He is preparing, he is refining, he is awakening. And when he finally speaks or acts, every move carries the power of 1,000 quiet hours. Modern culture teaches men that to be alone is to be incomplete, that to be without a romantic partner is to be failing in some way. It floods their minds with messages suggesting that success is measured by external attachments, that fulfillment must be validated through someone else's presence. But wisdom from ancient disciplines tells a different story. It teaches that aloneness is not emptiness. It is not deficiency. It is not weakness. It is power preserved. When a man walks the path without seeking a girlfriend, without chasing companionship, without needing another to fill his time or his heart, he is not rejecting love. He is refining himself. He is conserving the most sacred resources he has, his time, his energy, his attention, and his inner fire. And in doing so, he becomes more, not less. He is not drained by emotional entanglements or fragmented by daily arguments over ego. His inner world remains whole, sharp, and clean. Preservation of power means he is aware of what he is giving, when, and to whom. He does not spend his thoughts daydreaming about someone who does not yet exist. He does not pour his emotional energy into proving his worth to someone else. He does not exhaust himself in battles of insecurity in the constant effort of being enough for someone else's fluctuating standards. Instead, he channels that same energy inward. He learns a new language, the language of self-respect, the language of commitment to one's vision, the language of sacred solitude. While others dilute their attention through endless texting, dating, and needing to be seen, he is learning how to be unseen without becoming empty. This is the secret power of the one who walks alone by choice. He remains full while invisible to the crowd. Aloneness also gives him mastery over time. Without the responsibilities of a relationship, he learns the rhythm of his own body, the workings of his own mind. He begins to notice what increases his peace and what disturbs it. He discovers how to move with the cycles of discipline, how to rest when needed, and how to push beyond limits when the time is right. There are no outside distractions pulling him away from his schedule, no emotional turmoil forcing him to abandon his purpose. Every hour becomes an offering to growth. Every day becomes a blank canvas. Without realizing it, this man is achieving more internally than many do externally. He is building a deep well of discipline that others will only see once its fruits become undeniable. And when they see it, they will call it talent, luck, or advantage. But they won't understand that it was born from hours spent alone, not in despair, but in devotion. Power preserved is also clarity preserved. The man who walks this path is not bombarded with conflicting emotional narratives. He does not spend his nights overthinking words, misinterpreting silence, or doubting his worth because of someone else's emotional distance. He sleeps peacefully. He wakes with purpose. He walks lightly. This clarity allows him to think longer, plan better, and act more decisively. He is not distracted by drama. He is not intoxicated by affection that demands the loss of his direction. He remains clear. And this clarity is rare because most people live their lives half blind, unable to separate their emotions from their decisions. But the man who has preserved his power through intentional solitude sees through fog. He knows the difference between temporary pleasure and lasting alignment. He knows when to say yes and when to say nothing. He does not confuse love with rescue or connection with completion. His aloneness has taught him that the most sacred union begins with the self. People may ask, isn't it lonely to walk this path? But what they don't see is that the man walking alone has not given up on love. He has simply elevated his standard for it. He does not seek out of fear. He does not beg out of emptiness. He does not compromise out of impatience. He knows what he is building, and he knows that the right energy will recognize it, not drain it. Until then, he does not sit in waiting. He lives, he builds, he grows. And that life, that growth, that strength, it is not just preparation for love, it is the expression of it. Love for his purpose, love for his craft, love for the peace he has cultivated. His solitude is not silence. It is the music of discipline. It is the rhythm of alignment. It is the sound of a man becoming so whole within himself that when he does finally share his life, it is not out of lack, it is out of deep-rooted abundance. This is why aloneness, when embraced with awareness, becomes a weapon. It becomes armor. It becomes the soil in which greatness is planted. It is not a pause between relationships. It is a sacred space where a man transforms into a version of himself that no shallow relationship could ever create. While others search for someone to fill their silence, he is learning to listen within it. While others use love as escape, he is using solitude as training. And because of that, his presence becomes stronger, his decisions become sharper, and his future becomes brighter. He becomes the kind of man who does not beg to be seen, but cannot be ignored. Not because he is loud, but because he is complete. A man who walks without a girlfriend, but with discipline, clarity, and peace is not lacking, he is refining. His solitude is not a sign of weakness, but a reflection of strength. In a world that chases noise, he chooses stillness. Where others seek validation, he builds value. This is the quiet power of one who knows himself deeply and walks his path without distraction. He does not rush, does not beg, and does not compromise his truth. He becomes the embodiment of inner mastery, balanced, focused, and unshaken. This is the spirit of real Shaolin. Alone, but never empty, silent, but never weak.